Hi there, so welcome to a Flash tutorial by yours truly. My name is Y, also known as Nick. Today we're going to be going over basically a rudimentary understanding of Flash's UI and how to navigate it for animations, illustrations, or graphic design. So, we're going to go over a few things. Well, there's a lot of things to go over, but I'm going to try to keep this stupid simple and easy to understand. Now, you may notice I've already written a bunch of stuff out, and that's totally fine. If you want to pause and take the time to read that, feel free, but we will be going over everything. So let's start off by maybe making a, where should we start with this? Let's go over each little individual tool in the toolbar over here. So, this is called the selection tool. This one right here, it does what you think. It selects things. Good job, you got a medal. The shortcut key for that is the V key on your keyboard. So let's just write that down so you can remember. V is selection tool. Sorry if this takes me a bit to spell out. I have messy printing and I'm trying my hardest here. Selection tool. Wonderful. So that's going to be your baby next to the brush tool and the eraser tool. You're going to be using that every minute at least. The ones you need to know after that are the transform tool, which you can get to by pressing Q on your keyboard. So let's write that out. Q. Transform. Alright, so basically what you'd want to do, what you'd want to use the transform tool is basically, let's say I accidentally drew my smiley face a little too small, and I wanted it bigger. So I'd hit V to go into the selection tool. I'd select my smiley face. I'd quickly press Q or go over here to the free transform tool, and then basically what that allows you to do is resize it. Here we can go like this. We can rotate that bad boy if my pen wants to work. We can make him bigger, make him scary, make him a god among men, and then we can hit Control X to completely erase him from life. Good job! You're already learning how to become a master of this. Pardon me, I'm going to be sipping coffee throughout this video, so if you hear me lip smacking or putting down the mug, I do apologize. So let's go over some other tools that you're going to be using constantly. There's the lasso tool under that, and that's basically going to wrap up the selection tools. So the lasso tool is bound to L, go figure. Everything else has been non-alphabetical, so I understand if you thought it'd be something weird like question mark or slash. Alright, so L is lasso tool. Lasso tool. The lasso tool is for it's pretty much the selection tool, except you can I don't know how to describe this. It makes selecting things a lot easier if you just wanted to, say, pick out the A in lasso and grab that instead of having to make a square every time. The lasso tool allows you to basically draw where you want to select and then selects it for you. Wonderful. So let's get to the drawing tool. Your bread and butter is your brush key, which is right over here. The shortcut for that is B. So B for brush. Lovely. Alright, that's what you're going to be using to drawing. Here, let's draw a face of the brush tool just so you get how it works. There we go. Let's make this man incredibly happy. So much so to the point that he may look a little dumb. Alright, there's his tongue. Some of those lovely dimples. Let's maybe give him that thing that every human has. Go like this. Give him some details on his nose. Some eyebrows. And there you go. We got a happy little lad. So, let's get rid of that with our selection tool. And then Control X is delete. Actually, the delete key also functions just fine. So let's write that down. Control plus X equals delete. It's just easier to use Control X than having to put your finger all the way over to the delete key, because your hand's going to basically sit on your left hand side of the keyboard. Your left hand's going to be your workhorse while your right hand's your drawing, or reverse those. No matter how you are, everything's going to work just about the same. So Control X, much easier to do than reaching all the way over and pressing the delete key, unless you're left-handed dominantly. You're in the 1%, good job. Alright, so brush tool, we get how to use that, we get how to delete, wonderful. So, next one we're going to be going over is the paint bucket, which is pretty self-explanatory, also known as the fill tool in some programs. So, let's just make one more. I know things are getting kind of crowded here, but you'll understand. So, for the paint bucket tool, it is K on your keyboard. That is a shortcut. So, paint bucket. I gotta cram some text in here. Or fill tool. I don't know why they didn't just call it the fill tool. That makes much more sense than the paint bucket tool, but hey, whatever. They already ran this program into the ground. So, alright, K allows you to fill your squares or your circles full of whatever you'd like. That's a paint bucket tool. You got that. The eyedropper tool. So, let's introduce a second color here. So, say you were working with someone who's got more than one color. Let's say their eyes are red. And then you're like, oh, shit. I wanted to make the pupils of his eyes the same electric, ugly blue we got going on here. You'd want the eyedropper tool, which is, I believe it's eye. Yeah, let's hover over that. Yeah, it's eye. All right, wonderful. So let's add one more to this cluster over here. The eye tool is your eyedropper. I'm realizing I should have written all these down before I started the video, but hey. We'll get there in the end. So, eyedropper is how you pick your colors. We're going to press I. We're going to select the blue. The color we're using is now blue. Wonderful. Alright, the one after that is the eraser tool. Now, some drawing tablets allow you to flip the pen and then suddenly you have an eraser, which is a lovely feature, but unfortunately I didn't buy one of those with those. So, for us plebeians and lesser men and ladies, you can hit the E tool, and that's your eraser. It erases things. You understand. So, the one after that is the hand tool. Now, this one I can understand some people not using, but I think it's pretty good. Basically, the hand tool over here allows you to grab and move your stage so you can see whatever you want. If I had a character who was like far off in this corner and I didn't want to see all my writing over here, I'd use the hand tool and just scooch right here. So, how you get back to default view if you're like, oh no, I use the hand tool, I'm now trapped and my stage is down here and all this shit's here. You want to come over to this corner of the program where it says 100% next to the symbols and the little movie icon. You want to press the drop down menu and then you want to go back to fit in window. Boom, all your stuff's back. Wonderful. It did move all of my shortcuts over though, so now I'm a little upset, but that's alright. Maybe we can just drag that there and all will be well. No, it majorly messed up a bunch of my stuff. Well. Crap. What can you do? So, let's just maybe move those down a little bit. Yeah, there, now we're pretty much accurate. So, the hand tool moves around. Let's just go show all. Hand tool moves around. You can go to either fit in window or show all or show frame. And that'll usually get you back to the default view. Now, the one under that, zoom tool, pretty self-explanatory. If you trapped yourself, you know what to do. You come up here, fit in window. Beautiful. So the color picker, there are two of them. So you see this one is the one that I'm always going to, oops, actually, let me change the color. This is the one you're going to be using all the time, the one with the paint bucket above it, fill color. That is what makes your brush this color. The one above it is the outline tool. That does not change your brush color if you've noticed. This color here, the second one above that with the pencil, is only used when you're using the rectangle tool to make the outside of the box yellow. So you're not really going to be touching that one. Don't worry if you changed it. The one with the paint bucket above it is the only one that actually matters. Beautiful. So right here, this circle with the squiggly line right down here is brush mode. There's only two you're really going to be using. There are 5 and they're all useful and handy for their own rights, but we're only going to go over 2 of those today. You have paint normal, which means you paint on top of stuff, you know, you draw your dude, everything's good, everything's dandy. Now, let's say I wanted to paint behind all of my text without having to make another layer. I would select the squiggly line tool. I would go down to the third option, which is paint behind. Now, what that lets me do, I'm sorry I keep picking that ugly ass color. Let's go with the purple. People like purple. Basically, don't worry, this is not going to stay over since we selected paint behind. So let's just fill that in. And then bam! All our text there, we've got purple stuff going on. Wonderful. I'm going to go back to this shade of red because I really like sketching with it, and I think it looks pretty on the eyes. So, that's brush mode. Let's go back to paint normal, which gives us our brush that paints over top of stuff. That's what you want. This little circle here is brush size. So, say you wanted a thicker brush for, I don't know, writing the word the really big, but you wanted to have your second word, let's go the eggs. You'd pick a smaller one. There you go. You understand? I'm going to select the lasso tool to get rid of that and Control X. So, there's another circle underneath brush size. You don't really need to be changing that. What this is, let's go over it just so you know, is brush shape. You've got square, you've got a slash, you've got an oval, you've got a sideways oval, hole looking thing, rectangle. You get the gist. Now, these provide different feels to the brush. Like if we pick that second oval, it gives it more of a, you can't really notice because my brush is so small. It gives it more of like a calligraphy type feel. Like an inking pen, an actual metal one that you have to dip into a well. I really, and most people, never go outside of this because this is your bread and butter, just the circle brush shape. You really don't need to be going into square. It doesn't make that much of a difference. It does make a little, but you don't really need to be using anything except circle to draw if you're a normal human. The one underneath that, this is very important if you own a drawing in tablet. Here, let me show you what it looks like if it's unchecked. This little brush stroke is your pen pressure. If it's unchecked, you're just going to have the same thing, just basic old drawing, same as you would with a mouse. You tap that on, boom. Now you can draw smoothly if you're holding the pen lightly, or thicker if you're pushing down hard. Pen pressure is a must, unless you're drawing with a mouse. Keep that on at all times. Now let's get over the big bad boy that we've been intimidated by up here. This is, let's get rid of this to make this, you know what, let's just move this over to the side. This is the timeline up here. This is what you're going to be using to navigate through your animations or your graphic animation. It's basically everything you want and more. So this little red thing we got going on here, this little red line, that does not move if I select this. That is only, here, I'm going to do something and explain later. That's only if you've got frames that you can navigate to each frame. But there has to be a frame there. This isn't any frames, even if I select it. Only the grayed out bits are the actual frames that exist on the timeline. So this red thing is basically your navigator and your fine tuner. You can grab it and whip through your animation as you so see fit. So, we got our timeline, so you understand how to navigate it. This right here, this little rectangular area, is your layer box, basically. It's all your drawings that are over top of each other. So layer 1 obviously functions as layer 1. You put layer 2 down, you're now drawing, let me pick a color. You're now drawing behind your line work layer. That way you don't have to go to brush mode, paint behind. You can just add a new layer, which is this little half-folded sticky note on the far left here, right next to the toolbar, is insert layer. You can add as much as you want. Say you don't want them all, you go to the trash can, which is the fourth out of these little options, and then you'd hit delete layer. So let's explain what this eyeball is and this lock. So let's say I'm going to draw, let's just draw a cup. Really basic, boring cup. So here's our cup. Let's say I no longer want to see this cup. I hate it. The person who killed my entire family gave me this cup. I'm like, fuck that cup. I don't ever want to see it again. What you want to do is you want to come back up to your layer box. You see this show/hide all layers? If you just click the eyeball that's at the top gray here, it's going to hide everything. And we don't want that. We don't want to see that cup that reminds us of terrible loss and awful memories. So we want to go down to these two circles here. You want to go in the first row, and then you want to click the circle. That hides that cup. I don't have to think about my family being dead ever again. Wonderful. So let's just delete that layer. Let's add another one underneath that layer. It does say layer 7, even if you don't have 2 layers. It's just keeping track of how many layers you've made, even if you deleted them. I know, a little strange, but it'll be alright. So if we wanted to lock a layer so that we couldn't touch it, we couldn't do anything, you can't delete it, your little brother can't come in and be like, haha, got you, bitch. All your shit's gone. Now what? Don't worry, Flash will do that for you sometimes when it crashes. So let's lock the layer. So we can't erase any of the beautiful stuff we've written. Let's lock it by clicking the second circle next to the hide layer circle. That locks our layer. I can't erase it. I can't do anything to it. It's just safe. So let's delete that other layer. So let's unlock it by clicking the lock again. And now it goes back to being a circle, which means we can erase everything. All is well. So let's go over some more keyboard shortcuts. I know there's a lot to go through in this video, but that is why we are going over actual animation and the principles of it in another video and just doing the UI so far. Good coffee. Alright, so the main tools you're going to be using to add frames or more cells of drawing up in this bad boy here, let's go over those keys. So there are 3 keys that you are going to be predominantly using. There is the F5 key, there is the F6 key, and then last but not least, the F7 key. So let's go over what each of those keys does individually. I said individually. I'm really a shining monument to the English language right now, and I do apologize. Just a bit of social anxiety, of course. So the F5 key basically drags out a frame up here for as long as you want. If you hold it down, boom, suddenly we're at 81 frames. Now I don't want all those frames, so let's hold down Control Z until we get just one. So the F5 key is if you wanted to basically make a drawing hold for more than 1 frame. So let's go into a new thing by hitting Control N and then just tapping Enter, because we don't really need to change any of the settings. So let's say I wanted a face that I do not want to have to draw. Sorry, this is going to be shittily done. It's really quick. I'm not trying to create art. I'm just making a little tutorial. So let's draw a man who's a little anxious. But the trick here is we're not going to add a mouth. Let's say I wanted to be super lazy today and use all the advantages of digital animation over traditional, and I didn't want to draw this guy ever again. He's pretty easy to draw. He's my character. His name's Mick. It's pretty easy. This is a really bad version of him, but I'm just trying to be quick here so you don't get bored. Let's go like that. Say we wanted to animate a mouth but never had to draw this head again. That is what we're going to use the F5 key to hold it until about, I don't know, frame 15, whatever makes you happy. Let's add another layer underneath that. And this is where some of those other keys are going to come into handy. So, we are going to skip over the F6 key right now, but we are going to get back to that bad boy ASAP. I do apologize for going out of order. This is just more important to the example we're giving. So the F7 key is how you stick in a new blank keyframe, which is basically a new drawing, if the word keyframe is still a little too hard to understand. So, new drawing, F7 key, you press it, you get a new one wherever you had your red line selecting. So, we've held our frames. I don't want to be able to erase this head, so let's go over what we've already learned. Let's lock that layer so we can't erase it, we can't change it. We're just going to draw over top of it. Alrighty, where did I put my pen? There it is. Alright, let's get back into this. So where we left off, we were talking about hold frames and the importance of them. I don't want to draw his head again, so we used F5 to drag that keyframe out. We used F7 on a different layer to insert a new keyframe. Let's animate a mouth over him real quick. Let's have him just go from happy to sad. So we're going to go 2 frames over, press F7 to insert a new keyframe. Let's turn on onion skinning while we're at it. Let's go over this now. Onion skinning basically shows you what you've drawn in the previous frame. Really requirement for animating is onion skinning. A really big requirement, at least. It's basically the same as using a light table in old animation. A light table shows you the drawing underneath, and that way you can animate over top of it with ease, instead of having to guess where everything is. So we've turned that on by coming over to this first blue skin. You hover over it. It's called onion skin. It's right next to the little red line. Wonderful. So that shows us our old drawing. So let's make it a bit of an extreme change, or like just like a mild one, where he his smile changes a little. Let's go 2 frames ahead again. And then let's just quickly make him sad. So, he's happy for a little bit, boom. He's like, I'm a happy boy. Let's go to this first one. Let's give him a much bigger shit-eating grin. And then we get to watch a man die on the inside. Wonderful! You now understand how to hold a frame, how to make a new one, and how to turn on onion skin for animation. Let's close this. No, we're not going to save it. Alright. So, let's go over what we just learned. F7. Oop, I'm in red brush. So, F7 is new blank keyframe. F5 is hold keyframe. Now, I promised we'd go over F6. So F6 is making a new keyframe, but it's not blank. It is exactly what you drew on the last one. That way you don't have to drag it out. So if I wanted to make a minor change to everything while still having it mostly be the same, let's say I wanted to draw a big ol' sad boy over here who's really depressed, and I don't know, maybe he's looking at the corpse of his kid. Who knows? He's sad either way. So we go back. That's not in the previous frame. It's now only exists in this new frame. Let's get rid of that because it's a bit much with all these other shortcuts kicking about. There he goes. He's dead, much like his kid. All right, so sorry about that. Glossing over that. F6 is new or copied, let's say, key frame. So the ones you're going to be using the most are these ones. These are pretty much the only ones. F8, don't press that. That has nothing to do with making frames. That's for making objects, which we will go over later. So now you have a very basic rudimentary understanding of Flash. Oh, there is one thing I forgot before we go over. Let's press B, go back to our brush tool settings. We've got our pen pressure. We've got our brush as big as we'd like it. We're on normal drawing, brush mode. Awesome. So I have my Flash set up a little different from normal. So default, you're going to have library open. Where is properties? You're also going to have the properties tab open over at the bottom. This is what your default Flash should look like. If it doesn't, you've probably customized it like me. I personally don't like having that library open. Let's close that by hitting the little X. This is the properties thing. This is important for when you make objects and your brush settings. So we've pressed B. We're still in brush mode. This little window comes up. There is something called stroke smoothness. Now, Flash is a drawing program which doesn't have that great of a brush, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but they still haven't really gotten around to fixing it. I just choose to be a masochist and animate in this, much like you did. So, let's go over smoothing. Flash has a smoothing setting to automatically fix your strokes. It's not a stabilizer. It's not going to make it easier to pull your pen across the page. It's just going to make your line into what it assumes to be smoother. See how I'm going like this, and it's sort of round at the edges. After I lift my pen off the screen, it gets spiky, and that's really ugly. And that's smoothing at 100. You don't really want it there. I personally keep my smoothing at 40, because I find that while it still smooths it out, it is a lot closer to what I drew originally. Default, I believe, is 50. Let me show you what that looks like. It's not too bad from 40, but it is a bit still too much for my liking. So you see how we had some nice circular blobs going on here, and there's not really much sharpness or anything, and they're almost the same consistency. It's going to change some things around the corners and all that at 50 that it's very noticeable. It closed a gap here. I don't like that. I keep mine at 40 because it's much closer to what I drew. You can keep yours at 40 as well if you want something closer to what you want to draw and what you meant to draw instead of what the program assumes that you meant. You want to keep yours at 40. Now, you can turn this off. You can 100% just throw it out and reckless abandon. I really don't recommend that. Because Flash, I have a really good drawing tablet. It's not a Cintiq, it's not top of the line. It's a Huion, but it's still grand. It's great. It's got a screen, I can draw directly on it. Beautiful. But Flash's brush, it has smoothing for a reason because it can't pick up everything you're doing that great. So if I drew it like this, you see how my lines look noisy almost? They're going to stay the same. Even if I drew it with the straightest hand in the world, that looks better, but you still get these weird pressure changes, and if we actually zoom in, it's not straight. It's got all these jagged lines like your hands violently shaking. That is why the smoothing setting exists in this program, because they made a shitty brush so they had to compensate. So let's get that back up to 40. And there we go. My brush is back to normal. It's closer to what I want to draw. Beautiful. So you've learned pretty much all you need to know for basic animation about the Flash program. So let's go over just 2 or 3 more keyboard shortcuts before we go, just so you know how to get everything back to the way it was if you ever do decide to change the layout of the UI like I did. So our first one that we're going to be going over is, actually it's 3 of them that you all have to press at once. So that's Control on your keyboard, that's Alt, and that's T. I have that mapped to my pen because I can just choose shortcuts for a button. I can basically aim my wand at the screen and it presses Control Alt and T for me all at once, and that hides the timeline. So if you want to get that back, you just press the same thing. Alternatively, if you didn't want to press all of those to hide / show timeline, you can alternatively come up here, press this, how would you describe that? Reel of film with a line through it, and that hides timeline, and you get that back. Or you can press Control Alt T or map it to whatever you like on your hotkeys or something. So Control Alt T, that hides and shows a timeline. That's really necessary. Properties is that's how you get your smoothing setting for your brush and some other things for objects or whatever you're doing. That is Control plus F3 gets you the properties panel. So that's let's do that together. Control F3 on your keyboard, properties, Control F3, it's gone again. I personally don't like having the properties up, and most of the time when I'm working on a frame, I actually just hide the timeline. That way I have even more space to draw. It's good to keep it open for animation, but just know you can hide it without any repercussions. When it is hidden, you can't insert new frames or hold any frames. You have to reopen it, then add a new frame, hide it again. Another thing you're going to use when you've imported, let's say a background you've done in Photoshop or Sci, and maybe some audio that you've recorded in Audacity with your buddies or yourself for an animation. You're going to need to go to the library panel. But first, if you want to import that, you want to click File at the top of the screen, Import to stage you don't want to do. You want to import to library. I don't really have anything I want to import to library right now, so I'm just going to show you how to open the library. So it's Control L opens up the library. Let's I don't know, let's import a doodle I did. Nope, not to stage. We made that mistake. There we go. You want to import to your library. Let's pick an icon I use as my Steam profile. If you click on it in your library, you'll get a little shitty resolution version of what the image is, and then you can drag that onto the stage. It's it's a bit repulsive, sorry about that, but you never want to go import to stage, because that doesn't give you the chance to pick a layer for it. It's just gonna smack this bad boy right there, and there won't be anything you can do about it. So the library holds all of your backgrounds, your graphics, your PNGs, and your audio that you've imported. That's where it lives until you put it in the timeline. So your stuff's going to live in your library. If you want to close that, it is Control L. So I'm going to write that on the screen one last time. I did get rid of the properties. I'm not a big fan of it. So Control L. That brings up your library. That hides your library. So now we've gone over everything you need to know about the UI for basic animation. There's a bunch more you can learn, but you're not going to be going into the debug window, debugging your movie, or really going into commands or anything, unless you're making a Flash game or you're coding in AS3, which not many people use this program for. It is great for basic platformers, but I just use it for animation alone, and that's probably what you're going to be using it for. So you're now a master of the UI Flash. We're going to teach you more about the 5 principles of animation and going over what holding keyframes can be used for practically, how to make your drawings look better in Flash, how to go over line work, all that jazz in another video. So I've been Y, or Nick if you prefer. This has been your tutorial for Flash UI, and off you go. Enjoy animating. Have a lovely day.